And we're off. Anthony Dukes.
Ross Duncan, how are you this evening?
Yeah, good. Excited about the podcast. I've missed the last few, so yeah, I've been looking forward to it.
Welcome back. Yes, we've had a few. We've had a few dress rehearsals too that you were a big part of, and have been an inspiration of some of the others. So you've been in there in spirit and spirits.
Yes. As I don't know whether this will the foundation of our podcast being based on alcohol, but I find it's a great way to wind down on a Friday evening, having a couple.
Agreed.
Okay, so what do you want to start on?
Well, tonight we were both catching, it's the 27th of October 2017, and in Melbourne tonight, thanks to you, my friend, because I consume very, very little media, no TV. I'm all on the YouTube and podcasts. Every now and again I look at a little bit of news on my news app on Apple, but I've missed that many sporting events that I would have loved to watch. But thanks to chatting with you and Walshy, I found out that the Australia versus England rugby league test match was on in Melbourne. So I think we did it right, yeah. It looked like a good effort.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, it was good. Actually, the only reason I know about that we even had the World Cup was, and you brought it up before when we were texting. You said the rectangular stadium is at Amy. I was actually reading an article, and it said something about the World Cup, and I was thinking, what World Cup is on? And I only thought that we were doing the Bledisloe this year, yep. Which is a great win last week, and which the Kiwis at work are still coming to terms with. Even though they win every week, a loss is literally something they struggle to fathom. Yeah, so I sort of typed in 2017 World Cup, and it said it's in Australia. It's in Melbourne. Australia's playing England in round one at the rectangular stadium. And I'm thinking, where the hell is this rectangular stadium?
Yeah.
Which is Amy Park. Yeah, I got confirmation off Ben. So I had no idea. That was about a week and a half ago. So I've kind of been building up excitement. I enjoy rugby, but it's probably because I spend a fair bit of time in Sydney, and my colleagues are Sydney-siders. It's even built further. That sort of just a background interest and passion for it. I love watching when Australia play, and also because we get smashed by the All Blacks, I always feel like when rugby's our game, rugby league is our game. So
yes, and we've been famously not that great in rugby league World Cups. I remember back to 2008 where we got knocked off by the Kiwis.
The Kiwis took us down, yeah.
We usually dominate. But
it's really indicative of how poor or how little influence rugby has in Melbourne. That's not on TV at all. I found it because I was reading an article which was about Bledisloe Cup, and then it talked about, and it was just one sentence in the article, but there's been no advertisement for the Rugby Cup. No.
Round one, Australia, England.
Yeah.
So what did you find out why they took the sponsorship? Like, what channel was it on tonight?
Channel 7.
Channel 7. So yeah, I know with the ABC they'll take away the sponsored name of the stadium, but why do you think they call it the rectangular stadium?
Well, Amy might not. Well, I'm not sure actually. Maybe there's some sort of. But you think it would be NRL who would have a major part in the hosting, and it was Amy Stadium when it was finals a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
I think that's worth.
That's strange. It's a normal NRL ground stadium. So I know that KFC is sponsoring the World Cup. When I downloaded the app tonight, the NRL app.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, I have noticed with the World Series on now, baseball, the Dodgers playing the Houston Astros. I've been following that.
Dodgers took game 1.
And then it was an epic game 2, which went to 11 innings.
I didn't follow. What happened? Oh, really? Who won?
It went to 11, yeah, and the Astros took it out. It was a great game, and there was a bit of criticism, but as it always happens when you lose, where they took the starter out, the starting pitcher. The Dodgers took him out after 4 innings, so they had to go really deep into the bullpen with extra innings. But we're watching the Cubbies. It was Chicago Cubs, so they took it out last year. My mate Ryan, he's a big fan.
So 100 and something years between drinks for them.
Yeah, and Harry Carey, Harry Carey, famous caller. I didn't know. I came across him from Will Ferrell. His science was Harry Carey impersonation. I had no idea who he was impersonating until years later. But Gary Vaynerchuk, we've been talking about him, and VaynerMedia, they did an award-winning clip of using Harry Carey's voice posthumously in this. Is that the right word? Posthumously in a video for Budweiser, and won an award. It was a really good. I mean, as a sports fan, and so I got swept up in that.
Did you get into baseball pre-Japan?
I did, but all we used to get was was the World Series. I don't remember that. I think it was Channel 9. Channel 9 used to play the World Series, and that's it. So the Blue Jays, I watched that, and then Joe Torre around that time. Yeah, I remember Blue Jays.
Joe Torre and the Yankees were winning. I kind of I'd only follow the World Series.
Yeah, I think that was the only one we used to get as kids. We were about the same age.
I remember Kirby Puckett was with the Blue Jays. But I watched a few of those, and then hitting Japan. For 5 years, I looked forward to baseball season. Because I didn't have cricket and our traditional sports, and I spent a fair bit of time at the local onsen, and it was just a conversation starter with all the old Japanese dudes, salarymen and other blokes. We'd just be sitting there watching the Hanshin Tigers or the Buffaloes. And naked, sweating, and drinking a Kirin or something, and talking baseball.
In the onsen, in the old hot springs. I remember when I was there in 2001, my first stint, Buffalo, what was his name?
Nakamura?
Tuffy Rhodes?
Jonty Rhodes. No, not Jonty. Tuffy Rhodes.
Tuffy Rhodes. Tuffy. I went to his the Buffalo's last game.
The African American dude. Yeah.
Yeah. And he had tied the record for home runs. I was there I got there and
they were trying to throw him out, but instead of pitching into the square, they were just walking in.
Yeah. The last, were you there then?
Yeah,
you must have been, of course. So I went to, it was the last game of the season, and it was at the Kobe Stadium. Back then, Kobe had a team before, and Ichiro used to play for him. But I don't think it was at the time he was playing for Oakland. But and I'm like,
that's Hanshin, the Kobe team.
No, in that league, in the other league, the Buffalo League, they had it was named. They were sponsored by a car rental site, and they were blue and yellow. But when I went back in 2003, they had merged or they had gone. I can't remember what happened to them. So I copped, and I ran out of money. I remember that sort of. I had to walk home from Umeda because I didn't have enough money to catch a subway because I bought all this paraphernalia. But I remember thinking, I'm going to go around and I'm going to catch the ball that he hits the record the Japan record home runs, but he never did. But it was me and all these kids, and we're in because I think it was a lefty, and I was around in the corner, and I was thinking, he'd probably pull it and he'll knock it over this way. That was my plan, and it was all these kids had gloves, and I'm like, you guys don't have a chance, mate. This one's mine, but he hit one. He hit one to centre field, but it was caught. I think on the track. You know how they got that track bit.
Yeah.
It got pretty deep.
We were quite upset because when he was getting close to the record, so opposition teams didn't want an American or a foreigner, a gaijin, beating a Japanese person for the record. So they just started to walking. Yeah, it was really frustrating. Just felt like a sense of foul play.
Isn't it? I mean, because that's a legitimate tactic. But what was the situation?
No, it is. It's a legitimate tactic, right? It's legitimate, but we're not understanding the sport. It's amazing. Basically, you think you throw a pitch, hit it, and that's but tactically, it's really complex.
Yeah,
I was reading a book on Taiko and some other stuff, and it was talking about the complexities of the game. We have no idea when to go deep in the bullpen or to drag someone, or to allow someone to strike out, or it is incredibly complex. So we didn't understand. It just felt like it was cheating, but it wasn't. Tuffy Rhodes.
I mean, were they doing it early? Like if they're doing it at his first at bat, then there's no excuse.
Right
because
it was on purpose. Yeah.
Oh well, then you can't. I mean, to walk somebody
in a Nova lesson, I had a debate with Mr. Mickey, an older Japanese dude. We had an open debate around the merits of it, and he goes, "No, we protect the record," and I'm like, "No, you can't. Beat him on his merits, pitch him, strike him out, or throw it wide and get him chasing. So whatever it is, but you can't just."
It's not cricket.
Win by, nefarious
It's just not
means.
Cricket.
You know what?
Yeah,
and we've got that lens, right? It's just not cricket.
Yeah.
Queensbury rules. It's just not cricket. All that sort of stuff. To us, it is. A couple of years ago, I was playing in a T20 cricket comp, right?
Yeah.
We're playing against a Pakistani team, and I was playing with a team that was largely Indians. And this Pakistani team, they were appealing for everything, and they were really, well, it felt to me like dodgy, and they were cheating. And I got into a bit of an argument with a couple of them, and there was a bit of argy-bargy. And at the end, one of the guys in our team, an Anglo-Indian guy, sort of said, "You do know that it's part of their culture. Sleight of hand is an art form for them. So the appealing, the trickery is actually celebrated, and it's a skill. But to us, it's just not cricket. But the whole ManCat or foxing and those sorts of things are celebrated in Pakistan. It's just we've got that Eurocentric, colonial sort of lens or frame that we look at things from, and to us they're blatant cheats. But that's a tactic,
right?
And I would never have known. But talking to this Anglo-Indian guy, Warren who's a Goan Indian, so the Catholic Indian. So he sort of said, and it's just an insight that we would never have.
So that you had Anglo-Indian, or you said predominantly Indians, your team, and predominantly Pakistanis in the other team.
Yeah.
Was Warren, and the rest of your teammates like, that's just how we play it? Like, or was it saying the Pakis?
That's how that's how the Pakis play it. Yeah. They were still fiery. It was quite interesting because, we had the Indian team, but we played against a team with Pakistanis. There was another team with Sri Lankans, and the rivalries were so much more intense because, Australia essentially we have the Kiwis or the Poms, but we don't understand the deep cultural rivalries, say, between India and Sri Lanka or India and Pakistan. And obviously Pakistan and India used to be the same country. It was intense, and I was in there and I felt it. And for that day, or for that 3 hours, I was an Indian. I was an honorary Indian going out into battle against the Pakistanis, and we played against the Sri Lankans in the final. And it was great to sort of to be a part of that other culture and the battles and the way that they sort of went at it. A lot more passion than the Indians would have against the Aussies.
Okay.
Based on DNA, based on thousands of years of cultural, cultural hardwired data, Croatians and Serbs, all that sort of stuff that's just fed down through generations.
I did notice that when I was in Melbourne and went to my nephew and my brother's cricket games. A lot of Indians there, and it's like, oh wow, that's different to Queensland, or especially in North Queensland. There's not many Indians up there, and the multiculturalness of Australia and particularly Melbourne was really evident. That I remember thinking, yeah, here we are. We're a multicultural nations, and here they are, side by side. And I think it's like you're saying, just cricket. I was going to say with cricket, it's just not cricket. Was we were in the is it the ABC? Remember the all baseball championships or whatever it was back in the day when you and I were in Japan, and I didn't know the rules like you were saying, and the ball. It was Australia versus, I can't remember, and it was final or something. I think it was a semi or something like that. The ball. Yeah,
because we either won it or lost in the final. We made it pretty far, right?
Yeah. Japan ended up winning it, and I don't think we were playing. I can't remember, Cuba or somewhere, and the ball hit the wall, and then the dude caught it. Right, and it was obvious from the
one hand, one bounce. Yeah, off the wall.
Yeah, and I thought that's out. I just assumed that was out because it hasn't gone over the wall. I didn't realise that that's not out. You can't be caught off the wall in baseball. And I remember seeing, because it was all in Japanese, I remember the Aussie manager going, the ball hit the wall. Like I could read his lips. And the dude's gone, I caught it. And it took me back to David Boone, where he took a catch at silly mid-on or in the slips. And then whoever we were playing went, did you catch that? And he's going, mate, I didn't catch it. I'm not going to call it. Like that was, and
it's always that gentleman's agreement on a catch.
Yeah, and if you don't know, then you're not going to appeal. He won't. The catcher won't appeal. The other people can appeal, but he's not going to go up and go, yes. He's just like, I'm not sure. And I took that back to work, and there was a couple of Americans I used to work with, and I said, you don't do that, do you? Like, you don't lie. It's not football. You know what I mean? You don't try and put one over. He goes, yeah. He goes, so baseball and football, there's no gentleman, like you said, Queensbury rules.
Yeah, the sport has its inherent.
That's the gentleman game of English sport, English rooted sport.
Well, if you think about it, baseball, you try and steal bases. So there's a lot, there's a fair bit in there, which is about, was it skullduggery or, using by any means necessary. Yeah, all fans loving baseball. And the Chappells took that because they were former baseballers apparently.
They were. Ian was a very good baseballer.
Yeah, and the underarm ball was just a tactic, wasn't it? That still resonates now with our Kiwi cousins.
Yeah, that was that was a crap one. I wonder if he premeditated it. I wonder whether he'd gone if in that situation he'd scenario planned it or yes or no.
Apparently, because Greg was captain, Greg has told Ian so this is cricket folklore.
Yeah.
Greg had lost a game, whether it was juniors or something, where someone had hit a six off the last ball. There'd been a scenario. There was enough baggage there for him to lose pragmatism and just be emotionally clouded, and to say to his younger brother, Trevor, bowl an underarm and they can't win. Because my dad used to always say the Chappells ruined cricket because that you don't walk, that type of thing. Prior to Ian Chappell, he used to say, you always walked. If you nicked it, you walked. But Ian Chappell was like, no, you never walk. They have to give you out. And so with the Chappells, there was a change that angry sort of Australian cricketer was, I don't know if it wasn't discovered, but certainly the Chappells used it. And we were a pretty ugly team. That was when we used to bully the West Indians and racially vilify them and stuff prior to them dominating.
I have heard some pretty bad sledges that came out about racial stuff, but about females in their families and stuff. Walshy gave us a call. Should we have a quick
get him on?
Should we pause or should we give him a call and see what he says?
Get him on. Well, it's up to you. Look, I'm at the moment, I'm not a consumer, I'm a participant, but I don't know what's happening. So if you can make it happen.
I'll pause it. We'll see what happens. It could be interesting, but I just don't know. I just don't know how it goes.
So we're back here, and Anthony Walsh has joined us. My sound's probably really, really bad. And Roscco, you were just telling us about the pen is mightier than the sword, and you went to Singapore. Do you want to?
Yeah, I can't see Walshy. Is he visible?
I can see him. He's looking. He's got the turtleneck going. He's got Jack Johnson and Tom O'Reilly. Really, I can't even. Easy for you to say.
Jack Johnson and Tom O'Reilly. I don't know who Tom O'Reilly is. I know Jack Johnson. He was one of the first African American boxers.
All right. So
he started dating white chicks. He started dating white chicks to shove it up the American system. The whole, not apartheid, whatever the segregation. Yeah. Hey, Walshy, I can't see you, mate. I don't know how to get you visual.
Are you on the computer or are you on your iPad?
Oh, there he is. So when you talk, I can see you.
Don't you have all of us? I can see all three of us, but then whoever's talking comes up, and you've just
okay. So I can't see.
You're frozen now, Roscco. I think we've.
Mate, hold on. I'm still talking. Can you see me now?
Oh yes, here he is.
So I can see you, but I can't see all three of us.
Oh, it might be a setting you have to do. Anyway.
Are you swaying? Sway.
I am. Ooh, we do this.
I'm going to sway too.
Yeah,
this is how we start off.
Woo.
So now that Walshy's talking, I can see him. But I can't see. Now you guys can't see me, can you?
Do you know what?
Your thing's gone.
I'm going to get in with a little thing like this. Wait, we had John Farnum last week, so I just want to bring in John Farnum. John Farnum.
Johnny Farnum, you look like the Wiggles. Walker.
Make the noise and make it clear.
Oh. All right, now my camera's Okay, I'm back on.
We actually went over the age of reason last time. I can't see you, Ross, but that's okay. But the age of reason, Tony spoke about some people, some influential people that he had, and one was his high school teacher, Philip Ward. The second one was a university teacher, which I'm going to have to ask, did you find out who that guy was? Did you get any response from that one? And the third one was Pedersen, the guy who Tony's been kind of like doing quite a bit of research with lately.
No,
Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson. There you go.
Big fan.
So they were Tony's. At some point, I'd like to know yours as well, Ross. That would be really interesting to hear what your who your kind of like sort of influential people are. You don't have to say it now. I'll give you a bit of time to think about that one, but that's what we did last time.
I'll give you a bit of background.
Tonight we were going to talk about footy tonight. Was that right?
Before you join us, Mr. Walsh, we've
pen mightier than the sword, weren't we?
Pen is mightier than the sword. Roscco was talking about some pretty interesting stuff before you jumped in with the woo, woo. But we've got we did talk a little bit about the football, and I'm struggling to remember. Oh, sport. We're talking about baseball and how baseball and also India, the subcontinent cultures in sport and baseball versus cricket.
Yeah, it's just not cricket. Is a distinctly Eurocentric, British, Australian thing. Even we were the British. For them, it was just not cricket. And we were the colonials. And so we're talking Walshy about it being cultural. So dishonesty sometimes or trying to get an advantage, we might think it's cheating, but for that particular culture, it might be socially acceptable.
Well, how's this? If you ask somebody in the last 10 years, do you think Australia would be competitive with England at their game? Because So cricket is their game. What about the game of football, English football? If we would be competitive and would we stand a chance? And it's actually rude. How's this? It's actually rude to say Australia could beat England in football. It's actually rude to say that, even though we would be competitive.
What
it's because it's their game. It's rude because it's their game.
So
It's like saying, because all three of us have lived in Japan, if you would say that somebody would beat a Japanese sumo wrestler, it would be rude to say that because it's their game.
But Asashoyou was Hawaiian.
Yeah,
and a lot of them.
Asashoyou was Mongolian, but he used to a bit.
Quite a few of them are Mongolian.
In or out of Mongolia, Tony?
I think he's from near Q.
I actually met him.
Capital of Mongolia, Ulaanbaatar. I don't know how I know that.
I actually met him. I actually met him. He came to my school, and we exchanged pictures and so on.
In a ritualistic ceremony.
We hung out, and one of my students, the student I was teaching, was Mongolian. She was a wrestler, and so he came and did a presentation. There was there was a lot of people there, a lot of news people there, and what have you. But sumo wrestlers are known to be quite arrogant people. They're not like, "Hi, how are you, dude? Like, let's take a selfie."
No,
they're not that kind of.
Yeah.
But anyway, point being is, if you said to an English person that Australia is better at cricket or better at football or competitive, it's actually rude because it's their game. So we should respect.
It's funny you mentioned that, Walshy, because
it's their game.
Oh, game. Whoa, hang on.
We've got a technical issue.
But in saying that, when green jersey, they're pretty competitive in any form of sport.
It's funny because we were talking about Tuffy Rhodes, who, when I was first in Japan in 2001, I think he was on 56 home runs. And I went to the very last game of the regular season where he could have knocked over to break the record in Kobe, which was Ichiro's old team. We were saying how Roscco was there at the time, and Roscco used to like hanging out with mature age gentlemen drinking beers nude, and they would talk about Tuffy Rhodes and how he admired the big African and they did not. Have I understood? Is that the gist of your story there, Roscco?
Yeah, no, it was they absolutely appreciated the imports that played, but it was the fact that an American or a Gaijin was going to take their national record, and they just couldn't accept it. So rather than throwing over the plate, they were trying to just walk him so he couldn't get the home run. Forget about winning or losing. It was a sense of national pride to stop him from taking out. And I forget the guy who held the record, who probably still holds it now. I actually had season tickets to they were the Kintetsu Buffaloes at the time. Nova. Nova at 2001, they were the main sponsor. I managed to, it was when I first came on as the assistant trainer at Wakayama, and they had, so no one actually wanted to do it, or no one took it up. I actually grabbed the season ticket offering. So I was offered to the Osaka Dome most weeks. I actually got up on where their cheer squad, the Taiko people, I got up and hit the drums with them. They didn't want me to do it, but how do you tell a Gaijin not to? So I'm on national fucking television, banging the drum. Yeah, I was quite drunk because of the old backpack. The squirter comes around and squirts your beer cup. So yeah, I was pretty drunk. Byron Coonerty was there. He got up as well. We were banging the Taiko drums, standing up, national television on the scoreboard, cheering. And we're playing like, I think it was like Hiroshima Carp or something like that. It was a great day. Yeah.
They're actually they're gangsters, by the way. The people who organise the cheerleaders of the Hanshin Tigers that do that job with the taiko and the cheering and all the chants. They're actually that's an organised gang that's doing that.
But Hanshin,
by the way,
to Buffalo.
This was the Buffalo side, because they were a relatively newer team. Hanshin, they were established, old school. Koshien Stadium.
I was at it's funny you mentioned the Hiroshima Carps, because I wore orange to a Hanshin Tigers and Carps game and sat right in the middle of all of those people. Well, of the Hanshin. They told me to move, by the way. They said, nah, not with the orange, or take it off. Nah, that's not going to work.
Carpu.
You used to
by the way,
you near the Osaka Dome, Walshy. I remember I used to ride my bike over to see you, and I remember once either leaving your place or on my way to your place, I dropped by the Osaka Dome where Kintetsu had a home game, and I somehow talked my way into watching some of the game for free. But I didn't hit
Kyorseta,
I didn't hit the
Kyorseta Dome. Right, you did get there. But Kyorseta Dome is in Imamiya. Just there's a lot of really good Okinawan restaurants around that area.
You know,
Can you hear? Really nice spot.
Here we go.
That's the Hiroshima Carp fight song.
Well, it's
really
very fighty. I've got a conspiracy theory. I wonder if when I went to the first week of the finals, Geelong versus Richmond Tigers, Hanshin Tigers, good connection there, in 2017, taiko drums. The taiko drums with plenty of Japanese were playing, and we were waving Geelong flags as the boys came out and invited to go there, and they had taiko, and I thought, wow, that's impressive. And I thought that's a little bit unfair. It's a little bit like how the English made the bagpipes a weapon of war, and a player of a bagpipes was somebody to be prosecuted. It was illegal to have them. They said that was a war. It wasn't just a musical instrument. And as we saw this year, the Tigers took out the flag. They played irresistible football. They weren't that great that night, but we were even worse. Oh, what was that, Roscco?
With drums.
Taiko. They were legit Japanese.
But William Wallace, right? So at that time, during the Scottish uprising, bagpipes were outlawed.
Didn't I just say that? So did I miss? I thought I was...
No, you said that. Yes, I'm just... Yeah. I'm just backing up what you said.
Thanks, mate.
You can take my comment. You can take my comment, but you can't take my freedom.
I was backing it up with Hollywood faction.
Actually,
it's real.
Your family name, Duncan. Duncan. Sorry, it's Duncan.
Duncan.
So Duncan. No, it's Duncan.
Yeah, okay.
I did say Duncan, but I was meant to say Duncan. It's a. I'm quite sure that could be Scottish.
It is. My dad's side Scottish.
Really? Have you ever looked back into your genealogy to find where does which part?
My sister retired, Walshy, in order to study the family tree. Yeah, my elder sister.
What's her name? Which one, Lisa
Leanne,
or the...
Leanne, the eldest one. Leanne, who's now 58. Yeah, so when she finished working with ANZ, so she, went full time. Absolutely Scottish. So my dad's side, were Scottish. There's a book by a guy called John Duncan, who was an African traveller with the Royal Geographical Society. We knew about it. It's kind of like family history. She actually found a guy who written a book about him, because in the book it said that he had no family. So when he passed away, there was no one to carry on the name. And she actually wrote an email to this guy in England and said, actually, we are the Duncans, and here we are. So then Leanne got put into the forward by the updated book, which I've got in my bookshelf. I can show it another time, saying that, we thought that his lineage had ended, but his son was the first Duncan to move to. So he was a Scotsman, went and travelled through West Africa, wrote a couple of books. There's a book written about him. Drank wine from the skull of dead warriors with an African chief. The country was Dahomey or something like that in Western Africa. And he died on Lucky's third trip on the way back from some sort of fever that he picked up in Africa. And so they thought when he passed away, they didn't know he was married and they didn't know he had a son. So his son, John Duncan, was like my great-great-great-grandfather, the first Duncan. So we've got his indenture papers because he worked for a printing firm in Collingwood. And because when you're indentured labour, you kind of, your life is signed over to these people that you're an apprentice to. And on there, it's got father, John Duncan, African traveller. So that's all we had, and then we're able to piece it together. So this author, who's a travel writer and historian, was like, wow. In his life, it was this major breakthrough to say that they live, but it's not like a bestseller or anything. So that was that's the Scottish side.
That's awesome.
And then mum's side's the mad Irish Catholic. Hence.
By the way, the thing is, you mentioned a printing company in Collingwood. It's not JD Harris by any chance, is it?
I don't know. I've got at Mum's house, they've got the indenture papers framed. So when he was like 16, finished school, gets his apprenticeship. Because that was basically, that's your life. So you're indentured, you are owned by the company, but you've also, you've got gainful employment, and it was a status thing for people in Collingwood. They're actually reasonably wealthy at the time, but the fortune went, because I certainly...
When you're indentured, that's not slavery. How does that work?
No, it's almost like, it's a kind of... So if you think about the Industrial Revolution and industry and businesses, it's modern day, not slavery, but you're branded by a company that takes you on, but you can't simply say, I've had enough, I might go and try my luck at another printing company down the road. You actually are owned, and you can work your way up, and there are indentured labourers that might have eventually taken over the business, but you're at that time, and you're owned by the company for want of a better sort of term.
Wow.
Kind of like it used to be in Japan. You work for the one business for your entire life.
Yeah, and it's dishonourable to go to the competition. Wow. So that was the 1800s, 1900s.
Yeah, that was 1800s when he first came over. So I think are you on Google, Tone? I remember Duke's you could put stuff on the screen.
Yep. If you can see, I don't think you can see my screen so well, but I've just checked out Duncan in the background and just did a quick Wikipedia search. And just something interesting is Duncan can be a first or last name. So it would be interesting if you called yourself Duncan Duncan.
And you know what? I might be Duncan Duncan. If you go onto Google, type in John Duncan, Traveller in Africa, it'll come up with who he is. And there's a picture of him, and he's kind of, my dad had the sharper features, and so, that's him. 1805 born, died 1849.
This is John Duncan, and there's a painter, John Duncan. That's not him. There's a Scottish artist.
There you go, Tony. John Duncan, Traveller in Africa. That's my great-great-great-grandfather.
Which one?
Him. This chap here, right on the edge. That's the book. The book that you're just scrolling over right now.
So this guy here.
That's him. Yeah, that's
this is your great.
That is So his great grandfather. So his son was the first Duncan in Australia. Came to Collingwood, so we stayed around Fitzroy and Collingwood for our generations. I'm you know what, living in Bundoora right now. I'm probably the furthest Duncan's ever strayed.
By the way, the printing company was called J.D. Harris. Talking about John Duncan, J.D. The printing company that's in Collingwood that could be some kind of, I don't know. Anyway, J.D. Harris.
Scotland.
Scotland's Forgotten Explorer. Now, interesting to
the King.
I have that signed.
Love this.
Not by him.
By the author.
No.
Signed by the author.
Signed by the author, whose name was something Derek O'Connor or something. So
yeah, I don't think John signed it himself.
No, but so Derek O'Connor, he and my sister became quite close after that. Just because he's a guy who'd written a book and studied on the Forgotten Explorer, and then all of a sudden one of his.
Is that him in the Guardian picture there?
Yeah, I think so. At the time, it was when I was in Japan when Liam was doing all this stuff. So, fascinating.
That is. It's also fascinating to be able to travel around West Africa. You know, have you ever? Has anyone ever told you the difference between West Africa and East Africa? By the way,
is it like near Q and?
I know that West Africa was where they took most of the slaves, like Liberia and so
Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana.
Divided up. Yeah.
So you've got people on the west side who are really big in stature, like they've got big arms, big muscular. Drogba was a famous striker that played for Chelsea. These big Drogba guys. And you'll find that on the other side is so you've got there Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire and all these Cameroon, all these sort of like good soccer nations, and then on the other side in East Africa you've got all the marathon runners and the thinner, taller guys. So just the body shape is just of the people in East Africa and West Africa is completely different, and from that. Probably you'll see them on the world stage when you watch them in sports. You just see the different, the physiques, like they excel. A lot of the East Africans in the marathon or 10,000 kilometre and stuff like that.
So
10,000 metres, sorry.
The Westies were
They're
big.
huge, massive bodies, massive thighs, massive, body shapes.
So that might explain. So the slavery and most of the slaves that went to the West Indies in America and in the Caribbean were from the West Coast. So Liberia, the country, was formed out of the freed slaves from America, and potentially they might have, I don't know, but hypothetically thinking, they could have thought, here are rather than the tall athletic sort of runners, we've got the stockier farming stock. And I'm trying to think how a horrible sort of white slave trader, I think at the time, maybe they were better to try and get them to work the land.
Well, definitely. I mean, I'd be going for the big dudes and the little dudes.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd be judging them like cattle.
Well, yeah, West Africa is where most of the violence is as well. So the sort of African conflict diamonds and a lot of the civil. It's pervasive across the whole country. But like Central Africa with Congo and that. But West Africa is where some of the real violence has happened. Mali and
the wealth too. The wealth left on the east, on the west. Sorry, of the country. Look at this. This is a Duncan. This is a Roscco. Look at this character. Hey?
I literally have the book just out in the bookshelf out there. My sister she devoted her life. We found at Melbourne Cemetery, Carlton Cemetery, a few other places, graves, and we'd go out and visit them. And she found I think he's like a great uncle who died in World War I, and she found where he was buried, and he had He didn't have a tombstone, basically, because he was not a pauper, but he just literally, after the war, post-traumatic stress disorder and some other things, he died in relative obscurity. So Leanne got the Australian War Memorial, not the War Memorial, the Legacy, to pay for his tombstone. So we had a ceremony, and one of my great uncles who'd fought for country and being horribly disfigured mentally and physically because of it. She went and got the plaque paid for by the Australian Army, and they had the swords, which kind of like the Rising Sun thing. And so she did a fair bit of work. It was a real labour of love around this. And
is it published?
Which
the labour of love you're talking about, your sister did?
No, it's not. She's just put it into her own book. So she's asked me a few times to publish it. It's just kind of something I actually helped her with some of the research around the war stuff. Was kind of, it was my wheelhouse. So I kind of got interested and found a fair bit of my grandfather fighting overseas and things like that. I'd love to put it into a book. It'd probably be something that you do just for the family as opposed to.
What did you just say, Roscco? My wheelhouse. What's that mean? Is that wheelhouse?
Oh, yeah, your area of expertise or that you're really comfortable with.
Wheel as in spin the wheels, and house as in we're all inside a house.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Because there's three things you've said so far that we've been talking about, defining things that we say that.
It's on if you think about on the ship, the wheelhouse is where the captain controls.
Okay. I like that. I'm going to use that. Wheelhouse. And you've said foxing and ManCat. What?
ManCat is.
Yeah. What's ManCat?
You know what a ManCat is, don't you, Walshy?
ManCat, that's not the place up the top where you do the lookout, is it?
That's the cocky.
No.
Oh, no, that's
the cocky.
What's the one up the top?
Oh, no, that's not the... Wow.
Hicks.
The ManCat is when you're playing cricket and you go into bowl and you see that the batsman's gone out of their crease and you quickly run them out.
Okay.
Named after an Indian cricketer called ManCat because he was the first one to ever do it. And you know how you're meant to give them a warning.
Yeah, you've got to show them the ball.
You didn't give them a warning. So his name was ManCat, MANDKAT, and they named it ManCat. So again, for everyone else, it was like horrible and against the spirit of cricket. It's just not cricket. But for ManCat, it was actually, the guy's trying to sneak an extra run or get out of his crease. It's like stealing a base. In baseball, it's we were discussing this before, Walshy. In baseball, it's perfectly normal. It's a strategy. In cricket,
I think I heard that story about the ManCat story. I think I heard that about 40 years ago. It's interesting. I haven't heard it since. Yeah, it's it really is a dirty thing to kind of like run somebody out, like,
that's
without
terrible.
Giving them a warning. It's a bit of a dirty one there.
Is it the crow's nest, the one up the top?
The crow's nest. And
there you go.
The reason I've got Point Hicks here is this is the place where Australia was discovered I shouldn't say discovered, because I think the Dutch came in and and probably a lot of other ones did, but this is where this was.
And 20,000 years of Indigenous history, Tony Dukes might also have snuck in there.
Oh, yeah.
Do you say 20 years, do you? Do you say 20,000, sorry?
Probably more.
Yeah, which could be 100,000.
It could be about 100, yeah. Up to
the archaeological record can go back to 100,000 years of seafaring Indigenous people coming across, bone tools and stuff like that. Yeah.
This is where the Captain Cook's voyage, after he did did you know the mission of what happened? They were there to measure mercury. So they were going to go over here, and they had a secret mission which was to find this place. And I think they found New Zealand first. Anyway, they came through.
Terra Australis, the Great Southern Land.
Yeah, which had kind of been mapped before it. My cousin's got something to show me. Anyway.
Van Diemen and that had already been there, right?
Yeah, Van Diemen, of course. And the Dutch, right? Leichhardt up the top, and then they went over the west. Anyway, the Point Hicks is named after the man that was in the crow's nest of, I don't know if it was the Endeavour, Captain Cook's first voyage, and he was the guy who went land ahoy. So old Skipper Cook, he went this place here in the south east of Victoria is named after that Hicks, old mate there that was in the
land ahoy.
He was the man.
We're now going to create the world's greatest or largest ever penal colony and jail.
Yeah.
And crooks.
What a super experiment. So I want to go there. I don't know about you guys. I'm like, I want to go.
Where is it?
Southeastern Victoria. So you've
what's the nearest town?
My brother and his family goes to Malakuta a lot. That's where they go.
Malakuta Inlet. I know Malakuta. Right?
Let's have a look here.
I've never been there, though. Yeah.
What's close? I mean, like it is really quite remote, but I'd like to check it out. Cabbage Tree Creek. Why do they come up with these names? I love it. But look at that. It's quite a long way from the main road there. It's actually kind of probably better to go by boat. Anyway, that's Point Hicks. So what was it? It wasn't Crow's Nest. What was the other one you said before? Coxswain, what was that one?
Manhouse. The Wheelhouse.
Wheelhouse, and then Walshy used to say ManCat and foxing. What's foxing mean?
Well, foxing's when you use deceit it's kind of like lying in wait and then tricking someone. The fox is known for its slyness, its deceptiveness in how it would hunt. So if when you might pretend to fumble in cricket and then you run the person out, that's foxing.
Wow.
Named after the fox, which is known for its guile and ability and trickery in hunting smaller animals and what it does.